Welcome, everybody, to our Arizona professional group. So we are the Ayurveda Professionals of Arizona. So what does that mean? We're a 501c3 organization whose main goal in life is to share the love and wisdom of Ayurveda. We provide professional support to Ayurveda professionals in Arizona specifically, and we provide community outreach to everyone in Arizona that has a link to us and beyond. So welcome to this beautiful webinar. We try to offer community-free events, not only events, but teaching opportunities and little webinars like this to help people understand what Ayurveda is and how you can use it right away to help you balance your life in every single way. And that sounds like a grand statement, but it's really true. So we're going to dive right into Ayurveda for winter wellness. We've assembled a panel of highly educated and trained Ayurveda Vaidya's professionals. Vaidya means revered doctor or professional. So in Arizona, just as a backstory, Ayurveda is not a licensed profession in the United States. However, in India and across the world, it's many thousands of years of medical efficacy. So it's got a long lineage. So we are kind of where maybe acupuncturists and naturopaths were a little bit, a little bit ago. So everybody that you're going to hear from tonight has studied with advanced doctors from all over the world. Most of us have lineages, our teaching lineages from India. Some of us have lineages, biological India, lineages from India. So our roots run very deep, and I just feel so proud to be able to share this information. And this is not in any way advanced. This is lifestyle medicine, lifestyle information. So even though most of us here on this panel are highly trained, a lot of this is folk medicine. A lot of this are the things that your grandmother has taught you. So not to be concerned in any way that this is going to be over your head. It's not at all. It's common sense. So we're just very proud to be here. Now, I do want to say that everything you're going to hear tonight is intended for educational purposes only, even though you might want to hear like, oh, okay, you might hear things about, oh, this spice or this herb or do this or do that. In no way this is medical advice. This is simply for your own education. Now, we have a website called azayurveda.org. And from that website, you can reach all of our members who are certified Ayurveda professionals who happen to live and practice in our beautiful state of Arizona. So without any further delay, let's go ahead and get started. I want to make sure that we understand, even though this is wintertime tips, Ayurvedically, we need to know what does that mean? We know what winter is, and most of us know what Ayurveda is. Well, a lot of times people in Ayurveda or hear about Ayurveda say, oh, yeah, I heard about that. I have a dosha. I'm a pitta. I'm a kapha. Well, we have to kind of take another step back and understand what is a dosha and what does that mean exactly. So a dosha is a collection of qualities. And we don't need to really have any memorization of these because there's something we experience every day of our lives. So we have elements. We have space and air and fire and water and earth. Those are the building blocks that all of Ayurveda draws upon. So when we look at space and air, we call that vata. When we look at fire and water, we call that pitta. When we look at earth and water, we call that kapha. Vata, pitta, kapha. Those are the three doshas. Now, a dosha is a collection of qualities. So what does that mean? Well, if you look at space and air, It's dry, it's light, it's cold, it's rough, it's subtle, it moves, it's clear, it disperses. And you don't need to memorize these. So some people will want to like jot down notes and write this down. You don't have to. When the wind is blowing, you kind of know what that is. It's moving, it's blowing, it's light, it will dry your skin out. That's how we understand it. We of course we can study and memorize these lists, but it's definitely not necessary in order for it to make a difference in your life. Now, Pitta dosha means that it's a combination of the qualities of fire and water. So what does that mean? Well, fire is hot, it's sharp, it's mobile, it moves around. The qualities of fire and water together can have a sour odor. It can be liquid. Say if you have like acid indigestion, that's fiery. It's a liquid fire in your tummy. So that is the energy of fire and water together. It transforms things. I'm a ceramics artist. I use fire all the time to take something that's cold and mushy clay, and I put heat on it, and it's all of a sudden turns hard, maybe glassy. So energy of transformation, that is Pitta. Now then we have Kapha, earth and water. So earth and water, the qualities of earth and water, it's heavy, it's slow, cold, it's oily, slimy, dense, soft, static, sticky, and smooth. So these words that I'm reading are what we call gunas. It has a certain type of guna, but they're qualities. And so everything in Ayurveda, we kind of look around us and we see what are these qualities that are happening right now, maybe within yourself, maybe externally. But once you know and you can kind of get beyond, is it Vata, is it Pitta, is it Kapha? The language, the structure behind those words are these qualities. So we're going to spend some time understanding how these qualities affect us. Well, let's look at the first dosha, ether and air. When we see this picture of a mountaintop, you kind of see it's cold. The wind must be blowing because the snow is blowing. If you were up there, your cheeks are probably going to get chapped and dried out. It's very clear up there. When we see Pitta dosha, what do we think of? Fire. If there's a campfire, if you've got a fire in your fireplace, it's going to transform things. Look, you already can see this log is starting to char. It used to be a vibrant living tree. Now we're putting heat to it, and it's eventually, we know it's going to turn to ashes. The pitta, the fire, the qualities of transformation, hot, sharp, light, are going to transform it. And then we have kapha dosha, earth and water. This is the structure. These are the building blocks. We see the nice earth that we walk on. We see the nice, strong tree trunks. When we have earth and water together, it's heavy. It doesn't move around unless something makes it move around. On its own, it's pretty static. And it's cloudy and it's moist. So when we can look at the world in terms of the qualities, that to me is the key of understanding Ayurveda, but most importantly, learning how to balance your life. So in Ayurveda, we have a structured list of opposites. So a lot of this is common sense. Something's heavy. What's the opposite of heavy? Light. Something's cold. What's the opposite? Hot. If it's moist, what's the opposite? Dry, vice versa, on down our list of qualities. So in Ayurveda, the golden rule is, in order to balance something, you apply the opposite quality. So this is the list, the formal list of what we call gunas in this sense. And this is a good place to start. Once you start to get a little bit more steeped in observing this in your world and understanding what's happening around you at every moment, then you can kind of understand this is a matrix. Well, what if something is heavy and cold, but it's also moving too? Well, you've got a lot going on there. And so you have to understand that our world is complex, but it's made of very simple building blocks. And so once we understand that, it really helps us make sense of our health, our emotions, our interrelationships, all of it. And it doesn't have to be complicated at all. So Ayurveda goes by rhythms. We balance our world with the natural cycles. So in the daily rhythm, we look at the qualities of those that time, like early in the morning at 6 a.m. is the kapha time. It's more water and earth happens. You see more qualities of water and earth during that time of day. Now in midday, when the sun's very high in the sky, it's the rhythm or cycle, what we call pitta, because there's a lot of fire at that time. You know, things are moving, your digestion is strong at that time. Then, when the afternoon starts to happen, space and air elements are more predominant. That's why, if you're working in an office, you've all experienced it, that afternoon slump. It's like, oh, Vata, space and air, it's movement. You might not have the structure. You might not have the oomph, the energy to go on. And so that's where people gather around the coffee pot, like, ooh, I need to get a little bit more vim and vigor because now the pitta time is over and it's the spacey, airy time, better suited for, creative, airy tasks. Then, of course, once the early evening starts, things settle down. You hear, the animals start to go to sleep, the birds settle down. And then the whole thing repeats itself in the nighttime. 10 to 2 a.m. is the pitta time. This is the time when your liver is active. Your liver is processing fire. You've got a lot of things that are being digested in your body. And then again, Vata time starts up again from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. And this is where hopefully you're not waking up at 2 a.m. But if you are, well, that's for us practitioners. Well, there's probably some Vata going on. Let's see what we can do, to balance your Vata out. Don't start doom scrolling at 2 a.m. That's just going to aggravate it. But then you see, like early in the morning, it's a very potent time, and you're going to hear, eventually the birds start to sing. You have activity, like Vata animals will be out and about during that time. So these are natural rhythms that Ayurveda encourages us to harmonize ourselves with the harmony of nature. Before we get to the seasonal rhythm, it's important to also understand what is your rhythm, what's your cycle in your life. Same process. You're going to see this over and over and over again. Once you master the qualities and the elements, then that's really all you need to know at this point about Ayurveda. So when you're in your childhood years, you have a lot of earth and water. You're fleshy. When you fall down, you bounce right back up. There's a lot of mucus. There's a lot of moisture coming out. Pitta time of life, you have a lot of fire. You're getting things done. Insurance rates go sky high for 20-year-old drivers. They're like on the move. And then in the elder years, that's when the air and space elements become more predominant in your life. You see degenerative things. You have things that are, you see the effects of the dryness and degeneration, the depletion that the air and space element has taken its toll on that stage of our life cycle. So we have the daily cycle, we have our lifetime cycle, all sorts of cycles and rhythms. And so tonight, we're talking about the seasonal cycle. So in every season, And we know this. When the seasons change, you kind of do things differently. You eat different foods, you have different holidays, you have all sorts of cultural things that let you know that it's a different season. So as a ceramics artist, I was really so beautifully inspired by some Japanese teachers of mine because they had different dishes for different seasons and they swapped them out because the season's different. You might use a different color and a different shape of the bowl or the dish or the plate because you're eating those types of food in that season. That's such a very Ayurvedic thing. So I was so very inspired that I just think that it's in our humanity in ways that it might surprise you for some time to time, because I never really thought that, wow, these wonderful, highly talented Japanese artists that I'm learning, ceramics techniques that, oh, they're doing Ayurveda. They even go farther than we do. We don't, I've only used the same plates year round. Now I feel kind of like, I better have a different set of wintertime plates and summertime plates. Not that you have to go that far, but it's a reminder that that season has passed and now we're in a new time and space. But Ritu Charya, Ritu is season and Charya is routine. Um, it's one of the major gifts of Ayurveda. It requires us to stop and be aware of the natural forces and how we interrelate with them. Because Ayurveda teaches us very clearly, which is so beautiful, that life is a beautiful art of staying balanced. And to stay balanced, you must know yourself, know your tendencies, and know what balances you, and know what leads you toward disharmony. And only you will know what's too little, what's too much, or what's just right for you at each and every moment. So let's, with that, just a little quick view of the seasons that we acknowledge here in our culture. Summertime, Pitta. We have mostly hot, bright, sharp qualities. Fall and winter, which we're in now, cold, cool, dry, light, rough, and mobile. And then late winter and spring, the kapha time of year, cold, moist, and heavy. And if you're in a location that has a very once it turns to one season, it kind of stays that season. Lucky you, because it's easier for you. Here in Arizona, at least in our valley in the Phoenix area, we are very warm right now in the afternoon. We're at almost 80 degrees, and then at nighttime 42. So we are looking at the whole spectrum of all of these qualities in a day's time, a 24-hour period. Up in our north area, it's cold. There's snow on the ground. So this is a reminder that no matter what season it is, you must take a look at those qualities and be able to balance yourself based on that, not just like, oh, it's fall, I have to do this, or wintertime, I must do this. There's no one size fits all in Ayurveda. So let's hear from our panel of esteemed experts here. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we will get the spotlight back on. Here's everybody. So we'll go one by one and share tips. Now, the attendees, please submit questions in the chat and then we will read those out. And we've got a lot of information here. So ask away, type away any question that comes up, please do, and we'll make sure to get to all those, okay? So let's start with Lori Lee. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry, can I back up? Because Lisa, our esteemed Vaidya has a yoga class to teach. So let's start with her first in case she has to go quickly. Let's just go. I'm just going to do a quick introduction, but just introduce yourself once it's your turn. But Lisa Schremp practices in Scottsdale, Arizona, Carla Kane practices in Buckeye, Arizona. Amita Nathwani practices in Tucson, and Lori Lee Gilmore practices in Phoenix. And I'm Deborah. I practice here in Paradise Valley. Okay, Lisa, all yours.
Okay, well, surprise, surprise. I really didn't prepare anything.
It's
I was
okay.
just coming on as a guest. But I think that it's a tricky time. It's a tricky season. And so, Ayurveda is like this beautiful thing because it's all about knowing yourself and relating to your environment, right? And so whatever the environment is, you're checking back with yourself and then you're checking back with the environment. And what's really happening is everything is always in flux. So as easy as it seems, it's actually quite a good challenge. And it's, of course, knowing yourself deeply is knowing all things deeply. So it's a wonderful practice. It's very humbling because you think you got it down, you think you know what dosha you are, you think you know what's going to balance you, and it can be not nearly as easy as it sounds. But one thing I think about winter time or late fall, winter is that a lot of people hibernate, which is a wonderful thing to do, like the animals are hibernating and staying warm and staying inside. And with hibernation, we can think about our loved ones. We want to hibernate with them. I'm not sure who said it, but maybe it was Dr. Lott. It's not the time to break up with your partner. You want that partner, you want to stay cozy with them. And it's a really like, of course, we're already entered all these holidays, and so it's a really important time to focus on that love, which is, around the hearth, with the fire, with the warm stew that's cooked with spices. You're going to digest because the heat is going in, which stimulates the digestive fire. So you're probably going to eat more. But with all this said, it's a great time to have a really strong exercise program. Now, I'm a yoga practitioner, and so it's always said in the text that the best time to start yoga is in the winter because we can stagnate in the winter. We can get so into that hibernation thing that we just get dull. And it's a comfortable thing, it's a womb thing. And we need to balance, especially if you tend to get stuck, which is who? Kapha dominant or kapha aggravated individuals. And being outside, even though it's cold, is important. Being in the sun is terribly important. So, of course, like with SAD, seasonal affective disorder, if we lived in Seattle or Washington, those areas get so little sun and those rates of SAD are very, very high. So I think that, the exercise, the sun, the warmth of each other and your partner or my dog, is wintertime health. And I'll leave it to you other ladies because I'm sure you have prepared something wonderful.
No, that really wasn't necessary. I just did that to kick it off. So no, this was more informal discussion. So again, attendees, if you have any questions at any time, just type it, go ahead and type it into the chat. But thank you so much. Those are, you know, I have to say that a desire just to cozy in, it's a lot sometimes to like, okay, I'm just going to go on my mat and or go for a jog or something. It can really provoke excess kapha, the excess earth and water at this time. So in moderation, just be aware if at this time of year, the tendency to be that, couch potato and literally eat a bunch of potatoes, and sweets and things that are going to feel comforting, that it can create an imbalance. So that's a tip that you don't often hear, and thank you so much, Lisa, for that, because it's not one that is obvious to a lot of us. So thank you. Thank you. Okay, Lori Lee, let's go with you.
Let me unmute myself. Um, my husband loves it when I mute myself, so it's good to be here and unmute myself. um, so I think with as active, it is a time for hibernating, it is a time for being warm and cozy, but it's also the holidays. And so it has been very busy and we're going into a busy time. So I think it's really important for us to be aware of that balance of the busyness. And if we start noticing that we're getting too busy, things that we can do to draw ourselves in. Oleation, oil in the nose, oil in the ears, massaging your feet with sesame oil before you go to bed. This is a time that we can really move into some dryness, and that excess mobility will cause more dryness. And so, really making sure that we are taking the time to cover ourselves in warm oil and maybe jump in that steam or take time to massage the oil on the head and using like some green garage oil or something that's just going to be really nice to just calm the brain down, and taking that time to oil ourselves. That's one of my favorite things. I really enjoy my dinacharya, my daily practices year round, but I find that in the winter, I've really created a cocoon in my bathroom with space heaters and radiant heaters and oil heaters and like everything just to make it nice and cozy so that I can cover myself in oil, but especially covering the ears and covering the back of the neck. When you go outside, make sure that you've got that wrap on, especially at night. And take it in your car, keep one in your car because it can get warm here during the day. And then, you go out to the botanical gardens or something and you get out of the city and into a little bit of desert, and man, that will turn cold really quickly. So that's part of the remaining aware and present and curious to your inner and your outer environments, and noticing how quickly, and like what Lisa said, how fluid they are and how they are constantly in flux, and having the plans to have things in place for you to be able to incorporate that self-care. And then of course, spices behind me, cooking and nicely spicing your food, and knowing for you, when we think of spice, that word, it's like really broad, and you can have super spicy pungent and you can have a little mild spice, and knowing for your digestion and for your assimilation what's going to be most appropriate for you. And I think that when you are working with your spices in the winter, notice if you are craving something, if it's a biological or if it's a psychological craving. Notice if you feel like, oh, I just really love that hot stuff, but is that really hot stuff actually serving you? And maybe choosing a different option for some more mild warmth rather than, getting that Thai food with a spice of number 5. Maybe try a 1 or a 2 and have that warmth, but we don't need to go all in with that. So I think that those would be my big go-tos, is oleation and get the oil in the ears, get the oil up the nose. I remember Dr. Suhas walking in and looking at all of us and saying, oil in every orifice. And we went, what? And if we think about it, the Vata stage of life is, I don't like to call it aging, I prefer calling it saging. And so it is the saging time of life, and we are basically drawing out to death. And so, babies are gooey and ooey, and then we go into that fire and we get all the hormones, and then the hormones start going away and we start drying up. And so we can counter that dryness by oiling the nose, oiling the ears, oiling the mouth, oiling the skin, oiling the navel. And so, yeah, lots of appropriate lubrication.
Lori, thank you so much. And then I'm going to ask a question that has come up,
Mhm.
not specifically here, but some people submitted earlier, and this is right in line with what you brought up. So any panelists, feel free to chime in on this. There's a lot of question of, we're experts, we know the difference between sesame oil, coconut oil, all the different ghee, all the different ways to oleate, castor oil. And now people are wanting to know, well, what oil should I use? And this is where I really have to, since this is recorded, it doesn't matter so much if you're Vata Pitta Kapha. If it's the winter time and your skin is dry, well, you have to address the dryness. So does anybody want to comment? I'm not going to, give my answer right off the bat, but does anybody have any advice or comment to what is sort of oil should I be using? Where can I get it? Do I go to the supermarket? Do I go to my pantry? So, yeah, go right ahead.
I'd be happy to answer that one. And what I often, sorry, my name is Carla, and I'm over here in Buckeye, Arizona. I think that what I like to always do is explain the why behind everything. And that way it builds efficacy in everyone and they get more resourceful for themselves. And so I say, well, let's do a contemplation of your skin. If your skin is dry, it's to consider that there is kind of a relationship going on between your skin, hair, teeth, and nails. And you might find like, oh, my nails are strong in the summer, but they tend to break in the wintertime. My hair seems really healthy in the summer, but in the winter, I have a lot of hair fall. My skin is fine in the summer. In the winter, it's flaky and dry. So all of this together is indicating that there's a certain level of dehydration taking place. And it's that cold, dry guna that's in our midst, in our presence. And so with that, it brings along with it degeneration. And I would suggest that sesame oil as the oil of oleation at this time of year, simply because sesame seeds have an affinity for bone tissue.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is a substance. Sesame seed is also something that's very much, seeds and nuts happen to be Madhura rasa, is what we say in Sanskrit. And Madhura is the root word of durable. So it's something that brings strength and fortification. So whenever we have anything that's occurring that is a depleting situation, we want to look to substances that have warming and building qualities, what builds up versus reduces.
Mm-hmm.
So sesame seed is one of those substances that has a building quality to it. And it also has an affinity for the bone tissue. Mm-hmm. Affinity for the bone tissue also means affinity for bone marrow. And bone marrow is where the T cells are born, your immune system. So to overall bring strength, durability, moisture, heat, and all of it in one package, I would say sesame seed oil.
Sesame seed oil is key. So in the wintertime especially, it's a very warming oil. It's easy to get. So everybody who's watching the recording or live here, you don't have to go to a fancy skincare aisle in your, natural foods stores, not the brand, but, your organic food stores. Just go to the cooking oil aisle and find organic sesame oil. You don't have to order it from an Indian website or an Ayurvedic website, although you can. There are many herbal oils in Ayurveda, but I would say the predominant base oil will be sesame oil for all the reasons that Carla just mentioned. And especially in wintertime, because it's going to be nourishing. Vata dosha needs nourishment. So it's very, very nourishing. So don't think that you have to find any special store. Just go to the cooking oil aisle, find a really good quality not toasted sesame oil that you find in Asian food, just plain cold pressed sesame seed oil. And please, 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 please do not confuse modern trend of the anti-seed oil movement going on. Sesame oil has been used for thousands and thousands and thousands of years safely, internally and externally. And cold pressed organic sesame oil in your bathroom, on your face, in your nose, swishing in your mouth in the wintertime, on your skin is highly advantageous in the wintertime. So anybody else have a comment on that oleation?
So, one of the things that I'm really passionate, by the way, my name is Amita Nathwani. One of the things I'm really passionate about when discussing Ayurveda, especially because I teach it from a biomedical perspective, is also understanding its role in sustainability. So, where do we live in the world? And all of the principles around the types of oils that we use and the food that we eat, we can follow the principles, but at some point the rules are going to have to be broken because we don't inherently live in climates where maybe those oils are actually available to us. So, as a great example, my parents live in Canada, and in the summertime, my mom asks me, should I be using coconut oil this time of year? And it becomes a little bit of a complex question because she is from Southeast Asia, she's from India. So, inherently, yes, this would be a good oil for her in the summer. But she lives in Canada, she lives in Toronto area, and coconuts are not indigenous to that area. So I like to broaden the perspective as well. And what sesame oil does, because why it's a perfect oil this time of year, is because it does carry the very nourishing, warming, and lubricating qualities that we need to even function as a carrier so that it can open up the pores and allow any herbs that are in there to penetrate and have their efficacy. So a lot of times what I like to just say is if you are interested in doing things more sustainably, you can look to see what kind of oil is available in your environment. So I moved to Arizona about 6 years ago, and the oil that is indigenous to southwest Arizona, this whole area is jojoba. And it also is a wonderful oil that does some of the things that sesame can do, not to its full extent, but when combined with some of the lubricating botanicals that can be introduced into the oil, we can still get the same effect. We can still follow the same principles. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
That's beautiful because we do have so many oils. And a lot of our audience that we watching, they come from Western backgrounds. So you have things like flax oil and avocado seed oil and jojoba oil, those sorts of things. So we don't want to overlook those at all, but it all goes back to the gunas, the qualities of that oil. So for example, if you put one of those oils on your skin and it's not soaking in, it's just sitting on top, well, it doesn't have that sukshma penetrating quality for you. So you need to look at a different oil for yourself, not just keep applying it because somebody said that it would be good. It all goes back to what's going to be working for you. So I'm going to read a suggestion from one of our practitioners who lives in Tucson. His name is Josh Whiteley. And Josh is an Ayurveda practitioner and also an acupuncturist and also an RN. Like he's so super talented. You can find him down in Tucson. And Josh says that his number one tip is the one warmth rule, WARMTH, one rule for warmth. So instead of focusing on the perfect daily routine, he says, of diet, lifestyle, medicine, etc., which can sometimes set us up for failure if it's just too many things to commit to, especially during a busy holiday period, He says, find just one non-negotiable warmth habit. This can be anything, such as, let's see, this could be eating a warm lunch every day, getting a warm oil massage every day at home, putting socks on in bed, do 10 sun salutations. Lisa would like this each morning. Taking a warm beverage at night. This gives us some agency and creates a sustainable practice that rewards consistency. So he follows the KISS rule, keep it simple, choose one thing and don't worry about the rest. I love that tip. So, okay, Carla, how about you? Do you want to share your...
Sure. So for me, I think that what I like to share the most is something that made such a difference for me personally. And so when I was growing up, I was never taught. I was a city dweller. I'm from Chicago. And so I think, you become very connected to your modern life and a lot of technology. And I don't mean just computer technology. I mean technology like a refrigerator. Okay. So even back in the 70s, we have to embrace just a few things that help us to begin to make different choices that start to just fall in line with awareness. So, as I mentioned, these are the things that meant the most to me. And of course, when it comes to an individual person, when you talk about health and wellness, we're here sharing that which applies to the whole, right? That are general tips, simplistic ways of bringing awareness into your world for everyone. And, if you have specific conditions to deal with, of course, you want to see somebody personally for that advice. But in the big scope of things, being a city dweller, I think we're even further disconnected from nature. And so you might have a community that lives in the desert. You might have a community that lives in the countryside. Or a community that lives in the city. And all of us in general in our modern life are very disconnected from that circadian rhythm that Deborah shared with us in the beginning of our chat today. That cycle, we have a sun cycle that happens each day. We have this cycle of the season. We have the cycle of our life, So this is all a repeating pattern. It's a repeating pattern over and over. And what we're really not taught in our culture is that we should be doing things differently. Deborah, you mentioned, you have to do things differently in the winter. I'm like, I never knew that, actually. I was not taught that. You work the same, you go to the gym, you run outside, you just do the same things throughout the year. You eat the same foods. It doesn't matter that you're in Chicago in the middle of January, you're eating your cold salad for lunch, with your slim fast, like we all get ingrained and taught by whatever culture we're in, to be a certain way. But I feel that the biggest healing component of the bigger picture is to recognize that our culture in general has kind of convinced us to poison ourselves a bit at this time of year. So not only are we managing the fact that the earth is tilted 23 degrees away from the sun, so now we have this lack of photosynthesis occurring for us as a human being, right? So that's depleting the immune system. And then we have October 31st begins what I call sugar poisoning season, Halloween, and takes us through to Valentine's Day, February 14th. And in that time frame, we are convinced that it is time to be filled with excess food, excess alcohol, excess sugar, because it's a holiday. So, this is how we celebrate, and so I think that especially kind of like in our particular culture in the United States, we've been trained to almost be self-destructive in the eyes of celebration. And we can see that happening all around us. So by the time February rolls around, we have an immune system that's completely crashed because we haven't been nourishing. We haven't settled down. We haven't gone inward. We haven't respected the degeneration period of the season whatsoever if we're not in tune with that circadian understanding. And so comes February and then influx of kapha energy, and then we end up with a respiratory illness. We end up with COVID. We end up with all these chronic sinus conditions and things, and we blame it on flu season, right? But this is, I think, one of the most powerful things to embrace is that there has to be absolutely a different way of living in the winter than in the summer. And again, someone from Chicago, those are two very different climates, frozen and windy and static electricity. Vata is revealing itself everywhere because there's no water, there's no humidity. Frozen ice right now, I think it's like -20 in Chicago. Hence, you switch to the summertime and it's intense humidity where you can't breathe because you're breathing in there's density and water and sun and abundance of sunshine, right? So it's, first of all, obviously going to depend on what your climate is, but it's the awareness of the respect of nature, the respect of the tilt of the earth, right? So even like in the fall, all the birds have that internal awareness of it's time to fly south, right? I have to fly south for the winter. They don't know why, but they just know, right? So we say the intuition. And so, but we as humans, like we might have the intuition of, it's time for me to go to bed now. But then we have this other part of our brain, our ego, that's like, but I want to watch one more episode, like we get swayed by our own ego to defy our innate understanding as a species on the planet. And so we've disconnected ourselves from what we need to do in order to take good care of ourselves, because it's more about what we want right now in the second than what really serves best. So
yes, that's epidemic, especially in our technological era. Can you give like 3 brief how-tos, like practical, I'll just throw out one. Have a golden hour at night, get to bed before 10 o'clock, lights out at 9. Can you like break it down into some bullet points to help people understand, like, well, okay, I get it, but what do I do?
Sure. I would say moisture for sure. And that and bringing in more moisture into your diet every day. And that could be done. Ghee is the preferred method of really nice hydration. And so maybe you add a tablespoon to your morning breakfast or to lunchtime or to dinner, preferably lunch, because lunch you'll have your strongest digestive capacity. Secondly, I agree with you, Deborah, early bedtime. It's okay to actually sleep a little bit more. Because of the darkness, we would also do that. And slowing down in every way, shape, and form.
That's beautiful advice. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's hard to say no, but it's important to conserve your prana, conserve your energy, because it can get burned up very quickly, accepting every holiday invitation or holiday shopping, last chance to buy this. Oh my God, I gotta run out. No, and turn off the screens, because that's keeping you overstimulated as well. So wonderful. Thank you so much, Carla. And so Amita, let's hear from you.
So everyone really said what I would say, the moisture, the oil, these are the big to-do pieces. So I thought maybe what I might do is talk a little bit about the mechanics of why this is the case. And when we go into thermogenesis and start to understand what happens in our environment, so when it gets cold outside, there is this systemic vasoconstriction that happens throughout the body. And everything gets constricted, and therefore the passageways do not work in the same way that they would normally. So heat dilates and cold constricts. But one of the beautiful things that happens, beautiful things, is that when that occurs, there's actually a mechanics that brings that agni that we have deeper into the digestion. It actually pushes it in deeper. And Lisa mentioned this earlier, and I was just really loving it because this is the time where we can do our deeper healing with anything that we choose to ingest. So whether it might be food, experiences, a new herbal regimen that we're putting ourselves on, a yoga practice. This is the time when starting something and choosing healing for ourselves really deepens. This is one of the reasons why that vata time of year, that change in season, is generally why we recommend that individuals go for panchakarma as well, because it's the beginning of the change. It's the way that we bring it in. And so at this time when that's occurring, it's really critical that we not obviously put the cold food in to douse the fire, but we give the body that really rich nourishment that it can use and store, like good fats and oils that we talked about, but at the same time not take away from the transformation that might take place through the digestive fire, production of enzymes, production of hormones. And so by understanding it from that perspective, I think we can apply it better as well. And the only, last thing that I wanted to say is just from a personal anecdote, I believe, obviously the doing self-oil massage and Abhyanga is really critical at this time. If there is one oil therapy that I would recommend for everyone, especially in the Southwest, that is to lubricate the nasal passages, because this is the time of where change is occurring. Vata is predominant because of the cold and dry. And what happens is we ourselves also fall prey to the disorientation. When the wind blows a little too hard, we get a little deranged. It's not unlike that, even if it's just simply cold outside. And so to nourish the nasal passages, it is the one passageway that we can have to the brain and to our limbic system, and the way in which our bodies and minds can come together in greater harmony. And doing this is called nasya. And the process of doing nasya is individualized, but we do take some nasya oil that, again, many companies have. The base obviously is always sesame when we're wanting to do nourishment. And there are many botanicals that are in this nasya oil that we can put into the nasal passages and allow it to just rest and sit there, so that then we don't go into that place where we become constricted, not just in the body, but also in the mind.
Thank you for bringing up Nasya. And just so everybody understands, Nasya is not the same as neti pot. Now, neti pot you see in every drugstore now is a little pot, and that's a nasal rinse where you put, some salt water in this container. You pour it in one nostril and it comes out the other. That's not Nasya. Nasya, what Amita's describing, is so highly beneficial. I literally don't leave the house without my nasal passages oleated. The dropper now, also the plain sesame oil, if you haven't, or if you don't go online and order an Ayurvedic nasya that's been specifically brewed, and I won't get into the technique of how long to cook it to make it into a nasya oil. It's a very ancient practice that's many thousands of years of efficacy, but you can use your plain sesame oil to apply in the nostrils. Also ghee, plain ghee in a pinch, but the easy, quick, and dirty way, and I'm just going to say, just for practical reasons, take your oil, put a couple drops on your pinky, put it in one. Don't use the same finger, but you might, it just happens. But one pinky there, drop of oil on the other pinky, put it in there. That's the quick and fast express version. But the other way, you'd get the oil in an eyedropper, in a dropper. If you buy a Nastia oil, or if you get a clean eyedropper, medicine dropper, just lean the head back on your bed, or even if you just lean back, couple drops, two, in the oil, massage it a little bit. Maybe you breathe deep. It doesn't have to be complicated. And the reason I'm saying this is that if you look it up, sometimes you'll find a whole page of how to do Nasya. And sometimes that scares people away from trying it. Like, wow, that looks really complicated. Put oil in your nose. That's the bottom line. Better to get oil in the nose than not at all, especially now with, airborne viruses and things like going on. This is not medical advice, but it is giving a barrier. It's helping your body's immune system, nervous system, all of it. So, yeah. I'm going to read one more tip from one of our practitioners, from Tanya Bungart Price. She's also in Tucson. She has a wonderful practice down there, and her husband, Bill Price, is an expert Panchakarma therapist. So they have a really nice practice down in Tucson. And she's bringing up the spices, and specifically, she points out that the ancient texts encourage drinking warm liquids, and winter is ideal for hot beverages such as golden milk. And everybody's in Ayurveda, like golden milk it's having its moment of fame. It's basically milk. You can use plant-based milk. And then she lists the spices that she likes to put in the milk. A warm beverage, especially in evening, calms the vata down, helps you prepare for a good night's sleep. But she likes turmeric, and that's how it gets the name golden milk, because the turmeric turns the milk golden color. A little bit of ginger, a little bit of cinnamon, cardamom, nutmeg, pepper, cloves, and milk. Any of those spices that you might find in the pumpkin spice mix. Those are all wonderful spices that you might want to just sprinkle into some warm milk in the evening, with a little extra nourishment. You might want to stir in a little, half a teaspoon of ghee in there. Really wonderful in the evening, and helps too with our overstimulated mind and our overloaded sensory input that is just in our culture now. So at night, especially, this warm, unctuous beverage at night can really be nice in the wintertime. Yeah, I have another question, because we're ready to wrap up, but if we wouldn't mind one more. And this was a question going to Amita's point. There's a very popular right now, the infrared saunas and hot yoga. Do you recommend that level of heat to warm yourself up in the wintertime? Or anybody can chime in.
This might be a Lisa answer.
What do you think, Lisa?
I'm not a hot yoga person, because I've always been taught to build the heat within yourself is the healthiest and safest way. But I am not a practitioner, so I don't want to diss it, because I know a lot of people love it. I don't know too much about the infrared, so somebody else should talk about that.
Lori Lee, how about you? You're also a yogi. She's also an expert Ashtanga yogi, and all of us are, but Carla too, So what do you think, Lori Lee?
Well, I think it's important regarding the asana aspect of it to look at what it says in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika about how much one is to sweat. And to Lisa's point, this is why we use Ujjayi breath to create the appropriate amount of heat for our organism, which is going to be different for everyone. And that comes back to us paying attention to what is best for us. As far as the infrared yoga or the infrared sauna goes, I have one and I actually love it. And I can regulate how hot it gets, which I regulate it differently throughout the year, but I like to apply various balms or lotions. And on the app, my husband has actually deemed it Lori Lee's meditation booth because I like to go in. I will usually put something cool on my head so that my head does not get hot. But when you are working with the infrared, it penetrates. So with my constitution, I don't typically sweat a lot, but with my infrared sauna, I can get a good sweat without overheating. So if I were to go to the gym and just go into a dry sauna at the gym, maybe 3 minutes and I'm like, get me out of here. But with the infrared, it's penetrating differently, and it's very comforting. Yeah. So that is my personal experience with that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And Ayurveda is a living science. We are, it's an art and science, and we need to understand there is always a fundamental rule for whom and when. If you're depleted and all dried out, doing dry heat is probably going to aggravate that depletion and dryness. So going back to the very beginning, what are the qualities? And when we can learn to view like that, if there's inflammation, if there's sluggishness, if there's just like, ugh, well, maybe, a 20-minute infrared sauna can like help get things stimulated and heated up and out of there. And that's a good the spadana, it's a treatment, our passageways that need to have the toxins eliminated, urine, sweat, and feces. So there you go, but you just don't want to overdo it. It's the Goldilocks principle, right? Just right in that comfort zone.
Well, and if I can say also, because I do have the steam tent as well, so I can tune into what I know is going to feel good. And I always have to notice how I feel afterwards. Is it bringing me into a place of sattva? Is it bringing me into a place of balance, or am I feeling rajasic or am I feeling tamasic and heavy? So this is where some of my students get upset when they ask me a question. I say, it depends. And they're like, well, what do you mean it depends? I'm like, who, when, what, where, and why? And within the same person that can vacillate often. So for us, it really is that practice of svadhyaya, of self-study, of not just studying text, but actually self-studying, studying ourselves, and really tuning into, why does this feel good today? And why did it not feel good yesterday? Or why will it feel just okay tomorrow? And not being rigid with ourselves, but actually giving ourselves that grace to live in a flux and live in the dance with balance, and allowing that balance to be a really beautiful dance partner with us.
Beautifully said. Well, thank you. All of our wonderful expert panelists. Those of you who are watching the recording, you can find all of our panelists at azayurveda.org. That is our website for the Ayurveda Professionals of Arizona. And we welcome you. We have a plethora of experts in our state, and we would love to help you. We're all available for speaking engagements. If you have a community group or your church, or you just want to have, somebody come and teach a little bit about Ayurveda. A number of us have written books. We're happy to share. And we just wish you all excellent, excellent health and happiness in this season and all others. So thank you so much for joining us.